All right, folks. So today I'll be talking about how I would improve Lane Norton's fat routine. So before that, thanks for making it onto my channel. If you have any questions or comments about today, please pop them down below. And if you'd like to work on with me on your own strength and physique goals, there is a link in the description. So, Lane Norton's fat routine. Now, firstly, FAT stands for Power Hypertrophy Adaptive Training. So here we go, Power Hypertrophy Adaptive Training. And that is what Lane's call the routine. Now, just by a funny coincidence, it also refers to FAT, which is a colloquial term for saying that something is good. It's a positive thing. That obviously requires a PhD level sense of humor to understand. Not something that Lane likes to throw in people's faces very often. He doesn't talk about his PhD very much at all. He doesn't want to use it to prop up his arguments. He doesn't mention it very much at all. In fact, you'd hardly know that Lane Norton has a PhD. I don't even think he really writes doctor in front of things he says, and he certainly doesn't bring it up in conversation anytime at all. So, yes, there we go. So if you didn't know, he has a PhD and he's a doctor. Right, so I thought FAT was a good name, but then I also thought, looking at the routine, the actual strength work that's done on the power lifts is more in a power range. So it's not actually, it's done more in a strength range. It's not actually power. Like power is sort of explosive work, and strength, which is what he's doing, is more like sets of 5 and stuff like that. So I actually thought the name would probably, of the routine should probably be something like this. It should be strength hypertrophy adaptive training. I think that's probably a more appropriate rather than the power. Replace power with strength, which would lead it to being PHAT instead. Let me know what you guys think about that. But then I thought, well, adaptive is fine, but then we also want to differentiate it from other routines on the market. This is more about resistance training. So perhaps rather than, cardio and stuff like that. So perhaps we should refer to it as strength hypertrophy adaptive resistance training, or SHART. That's potentially an option as well. Also quite a good one, I think. And then I thought, well, since I'm putting my own spin on this, perhaps I could get involved, and I suggested fast lifts adaptive resistance training as a sort of a collaboration between me and Dr. Norton, or FAT. I have emailed him these suggestions. He's not yet got back to me, but I will keep you guys in the loop. Okay, so this is the basic structure of the routine. Basic structure looks like this. We have got this is where I think probably we originated the sort of upper lower push-pull legs type of split. I think this is where it originally came from. If not, Lane is the one who popularized this. Just to sort of, all jokes aside, I am a big fan of Lane. I think he's a good guy. So just a bit of gentle ribbon there. But yeah, so upper lower push pull legs is what he's got. He's got the upper lower as the power days, and he's got the push pull legs as the hypertrophy days. So that's the basic structure. Now, this is a sample power day. So you can see here he goes for the barbell squats for sets of 5. Then he goes to more traditional hypertrophy rep ranges for sets of 10. It's up to 8, stuff like that. So the idea being that hypertrophy is more moderate rep ranges, strength is more lower rep ranges. You know the old stereotype. Now, I think Lane himself would probably cringe looking back at this and thinking, oh God, because we know now that there is no hypertrophy range. It's anywhere between 5 to 30, but he was just basing it off the evidence he had back then. So fair enough. You can't put him down for that. Plus, you know what? The guy was putting out free information decades ago, so you can't really dog the guy for that. Obviously, we're all going to make mistakes at some point, and we all evolve our views. That's what science is about. This is what sample hypertrophy day looks like. So we have 6 sets of 3 on the squats. These are designed to be light and explosive. This is probably more power work than what was done on the power day, to be fair. And then you've got a range of hypertrophy rep range up to 12, 15, 20, stuff like that. Again, relatively stereotypically typical, but as we know now, there is no real hypertrophy range, so it makes the delineation of the days just inherently a little bit odd. Doesn't mean it's not going to work, but that's the way it is. Next, I tallied up the volume totals because I think that's quite important to look at. It's important from a couple of different standpoints. One, so that we know what we're programming, and 2, so that we know how well we're going to be able to cope with a routine like this if we decide to do it. So it's a bit odd. Quads are at about 19, hamstrings are at 12, chest is at 17, back's at 23, delts are at 11. So it's a bit of an odd split. It's very high volume in some areas. Chest is probably on the moderate to lower end, depending on where you sit. Quads are very high. Back is very high, but then back is a big body part. Delts are actually relatively low. 11 direct sets is pretty low. I would go for higher. So it's an odd split. I know what he's trying to accomplish because he's trying to accomplish a bit of everything, but it's an odd split. So here's the stuff I like about it. So there is a focus on the big basics. Now, while you don't need to do the big barbell lifts, it's nice to have some markers of progression. And I've talked about this before. Have, something like 3 to 5 lifts, which is where you measure your progress in terms of your strength. Okay, so over the course of 6 months, did you progress on those 3 to 5 lifts? If you did, great. If you didn't, we've got to have a talk. Okay, so that's quite good. I think it helps to keep you on the straight and narrow. It helps to keep you focused. If you could take your bench press from 100 for 10 to 110 for 10, then okay, you've progressed. It's definitive progress. So I like that. I don't necessarily think it has to be on the barbell exercises. In fact, I would say you don't really want to focus exclusively on the barbell exercises. You want to focus on lifts which you are good at. But the barbell exercises provide some useful metrics for measuring how you're progressing and how you fare against a range of other people, because everyone has access to barbells. So not that matters, but it's good for goal setting, I guess. Next thing that I like about it is there's a ton of effective volume, and that supports progression. So there's plenty of volume, for most areas. We can't really complain about that. So that's going to support the volume, support the progression, just through the sheer amount of work, as long as you can recover from it. And next is there's a variety of rep ranges. You've got anywhere from triples right up to 15s and 20s. That is stimulating, and I guess it's interesting. We know from some studies that having a wide range of rep ranges within the same training cycle is probably a good thing. Also, mentally, it's probably interesting. This is one of the reasons why the old pyramid training works so well, is because every set has got a goal behind it. Whether it's if you're doing static sets and reps, it's very much about what happens across the sets. So yeah, it's stimulating, it's interesting. You can see I'm not a massive fan of this. I am sort of struggling to say good things about it, not because it's a bad routine in itself. It's just because just the way it's set up, I just wouldn't set it up this way myself. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't split up so many goals. So I think that's really where the issues are. So in terms of my advice, firstly, be aware of the volume totals. Now, for you going in, you're probably going to have a decent idea of what sort of volume you've been doing prior to going into the routine. So if you've only been doing 10 sets per body part per week, going into this is going to be a rude awakening. So start lighter. You can recover from anything if you start light. Okay, you could go out and do 45 sets a week as long as you do them light enough, and you'll build up and you'll gradually adapt over time. But if you are coming in at 10 sets and you go straight into a routine like this, it'll be pretty much double or more for some areas. So be very aware of that and give yourself time. Start off lighter and then build up. And nextly, get specific with your own goals and match your nutrition to that. Now, the current sort of popular theme is concurrent periodization. There's a few people in my comments who've talking about that, like, what do I think of concurrent periodization, blah, blah, blah. I know Alex from Alpha Destiny is very big on that. And concurrent periodization is good if the goals support each other. But a lot of times, in my experience, what I see happening is people struggle enough with one goal. Then they start adding in 2 or 3 to the mix. Like the first goal might be, I want to get leaner. Then on top of that, they say, I want to get stronger, I want to get more muscular, and I want to get fitter. It's like, oh, you got 4 goals there. You've been struggling to do the first goal for the past year, and now you're going to add 3 goals on top of that. Yeah, maybe it's okay to get a different perspective, but you just increased your chance of screwing up because while it sounds like a great idea to get a little bit of everything, get the best of both worlds, oftentimes what actually ends up occurring is you just get nothing from anything because Your focus is scattered. What sounds like a great idea could turn into an absolute disaster because you're not focused on one goal. I happen to think you can, I follow very much what Stan Efferding says. You can have everything. You just can't have it all at once. So if you want to be a really, really good bodybuilder, you should probably focus on building your physique, dropping body fat, whatever you need to do for a while. If you want to be very strong, probably focus on that for a while. If you're trying to do both at the same time, yeah, I don't know, guys. It's not really my thing. It's not mainly because I want to see good, tangible progress in one direction. And most people have difficulty doing that. So if you start adding a bunch of goals which are somewhat opposing, and they're opposing in the sense that your training is going to necessitate different things, like you're seeing with this routine. To accommodate all of the different goals, like the strength, the hypertrophy, all that kind of stuff, we're having to do a massive volume, which is going to be difficult. Now, if somebody was to do this routine and say, I want to do it in a fat loss phase, I want to drop some fat as well, it would be a disaster. Dropping fat, getting stronger, getting bigger, they end after a certain point, the goals end up being opposing. So be very specific with your goals, what you want to accomplish from this routine, because there's plenty to choose from, and then match your nutrition to that. Third point is take a block of training and evaluate after 6 weeks and see what's working and see what isn't. Like if you end the 6 weeks and you got tendonitis in your elbows and your knees are hurting, you need to fix that because that's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. Fix that. Either reduce the intensity and build back up, reduce the frequency, look at some of the exercises you're doing, but you've got to change something. There's obviously something going wrong. Yeah, so have some checkpoints for evaluation. I'm not sure if Lane mentions this or not, but either way, that's what I would do. And finally, if your gains are slow, like if you're just not really making a great deal of actual concrete progress, consider doing something a bit more specific. Consider a specialized hypertrophy cycle. Consider even a hypertrophy routine with a focus on certain areas. So you're going to see tangible progress. Just for a quick plug, I released a new hypertrophy routine yesterday. It's linked in the description. It's a delt and arm specialization routine. I talk you through how I create the routine and everything like that. So that would be my advice. Be aware of your volume totals. Be specific with your goals. Match your nutrition to them. Evaluate after 6 weeks. And if it's not working, pick something more specific. All right, folks, I am going to call it there. Hopefully you found that evaluation of Lane Norton's FAT useful. Hopefully no one got too triggered by my attempt at comedy at the beginning, but I will speak to you guys next time. Take it easy.